On Mother's Day, I brought my mom her favorite flowers, a bottle of her signature perfume, and a heartfelt handwritten letter. But she threw everything in the trash when she thought I wasn't looking. This year, I'd hoped things would be different. Not perfect, just a little warmer. Maybe because I'd been so busy with work that I hadn't overthought it. Or because I'd recently helped her with her taxes and she genuinely said, "Thank you." Or because when I texted to confirm our brunch plans, she replied with a simple smiley face, not an emoji, but a colon in parenthesis. Old school, familiar, like when she texted me in middle school before everything changed. So yeah, I let myself hope. I bought her favorite perfume, the one she wore when I was little, and she still called me sweetie in public. I got fresh flowers from a local florist, not the grocery store. And I spent hours writing a heartfelt letter, not your typical Hallmark, "Thanks for everything" card. I acknowledged that things hadn't always been easy, that I respected her sacrifices, and that I still loved her even when she seemed distant. It wasn't desperate, just honest. I convinced myself that brunch might be a reset, a way back into her life. My mom had me when she was barely out of high school. For years, it was just us, messy but close. Then, when I was 10, she met Daniel, her current husband. He seemed decent at first, quiet and practical. I thought I might be gaining someone. I didn't realize I was about to disappear. When my half-brother Noah arrived, I became more of a reminder of her past than her son. And Daniel? He preferred a clean slate, a nuclear family. You could feel it when he always said, "our boy," about Noah, but never referred to me as his stepson unless directly asked. Still, I stayed hopeful, because sometimes you need to be wanted to outweigh all the reasons you should know better. So when I arrived at their house that morning with gifts in hand, I felt happy. Nervous, yes, but also proud, like I was showing up as an adult worth having at the table. The house looked beautiful. Mom goes all out for occasions, mimosas, cloth napkins, proper place cards, Pinterest energy. When I walked in, she glanced up from arranging the table. "Oh, you made it," she said, and for half a second, I thought she meant it. That maybe this was it. Maybe I'd finally done something right. I handed her the flowers and perfume. She examined the bottle like it was a receipt she didn't remember approving. "Oh, you remember this one," she remarked. Not warmly, just observing. I didn't let it get to me. "Yeah," I smiled. "They only had one bottle left." She nodded, already turning back to the table. My half-brother Noah was talking about college life and how his economics professor looked like someone who'd never paid rent. Everyone laughed. I sat down. My place setting had a folded napkin, but no place card. Nobody had saved me a mimosa. It was fine. I poured myself some juice like a responsible adult. Daniel asked how work was going, then turned away before I could finish answering. My mother fussed with the centerpiece. Noah passed me the salt without looking. This wasn't new, but today it felt heavier. Maybe because I'd actually tried this time. Maybe because the letter was still in my jacket pocket, and I was wondering when to give it to her. I'd sealed it in a nice red envelope and even used a good pen. "Anyone want more coffee?" I offered. My mother didn't hear me, or pretended not to. Halfway through lunch, Noah smirked at me. "So, do you enjoy celebrating Mother's Day from a distance now? Or is this a charity visit?" Daniel laughed. My mom said nothing, just sipped her drink. I smiled as if it didn't bother me. "Well, I didn't bring a coupon, but I did bring a gift." Noah grinned. "Cool. Did you Venmo it to her like last year?" "Nope," I replied. "This year it's actually in writing." I stood up, took the letter from my pocket, and placed it beside her plate. The red envelope stood out like blood on the white tablecloth. She looked at it like I'd just served her a court summons. Then Noah snorted. "Did you write her a love letter or something?" "God, no," I replied, still smiling. "Just a thank you." The table went quiet for a moment. Then someone asked for the butter. After brunch, I helped clear the plates. I was halfway to the kitchen with a stack when I realized the garbage bags had already been taken to the garage. We'd barely finished eating. Maybe she was just being efficient. She liked things tidy. I went outside to throw away some napkins. The garage door was half open, and the sunlight was just bright enough to illuminate the bins pushed against the back wall. And there, propped against a black trash bag, I saw it. The perfume still in its packaging, the flowers bent sideways like they'd been tossed in carelessly, and my envelope, still sealed, red against black plastic. My entire offering, dumped in the trash. I just stood there staring. It wasn't exactly anger I felt. At first, heat rose up my neck and settled behind my eyes, not enough to make me cry, but enough to make the world look blurry. I glanced around. Nobody was watching. No camera crew appeared to tell me it was a mistake or a joke. Just stillness and garbage. I crouched down, reached inside, and took everything back. The perfume, the flowers, the letter. I held them for a second, standing in the dim garage, unsure what I was doing. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was pride. Maybe I couldn't stand the image of my love decomposing under coffee grounds and eggshells. I walked back to my car, holding the bag like evidence from a crime scene. I sat there for a minute, engine off, letter on the passenger seat. What a ridiculous thing to write, I thought. Thank you for the years you provided for me. I understand it wasn't easy, but you did your best. I am proud of the woman you've become. I stared at the envelope, then drove home. We didn't say goodbye. I didn't text. I didn't mention what I'd seen. I didn't even slam the door. Just left quietly. That night, I placed the letter on my kitchen counter next to the perfume and the wilting flowers. I stood there looking at them, hoping they'd explain why I kept trying, why I cared, why I didn't see it coming. I didn't sleep much, but I made one decision before sunrise. And by the next morning, she was calling nonstop. I used to think things change gradually, like erosion, that you wouldn't notice until the coastline was completely gone. But looking back, I think it happened faster than I let myself admit. She met Daniel when I was 10. He came for dinner a few times before becoming a regular fixture. One morning, I woke up to find his car in the driveway, his shoes in the hallway, and my mother wearing more makeup than usual. She smiled at him in a way she hadn't in years. I remember thinking, oh, the baby came not long after. I was still 10. I did the math later, but I don't think she expected me to at the time. In what felt like a single breath, she and Daniel had created an entirely new family with new habits and rules. Where the home office once stood, there was now a nursery. A second fridge in the garage is stocked with formula and organic baby food. A chore chart that no longer included my name. Of course, they were busy. Newborns are hard. So I told myself it made sense when they forgot to ask about my spelling test. When they missed my school musical. When they left me waiting outside karate practice in the rain. They were just tired. It was a phase. I waited years for that phase to end. It never did. The baby grew. They adored him. He walked, and they cheered. He said, "Dad," and they cried. When I brought home a school award, my mother just said, "That's great. Can you watch your brother while I take a nap?" It wasn't like she stopped loving me overnight. It was like she began loving someone else more loudly. And over time, the silence became deafening. By the time I left for college, the house no longer felt like mine. Every wall displayed photos of them smiling at parks, wearing matching holiday pajamas, Noah on Santa's lap. I wasn't in any of them. Not even a high school graduation photo. Just erased. I remember walking past a framed canvas by the stairs that said, "Family is everything," and thinking, yeah, but not this family. But I kept trying. That's the part that still embarrasses me. I kept showing up for holidays. I kept buying birthday gifts. I helped with expenses when money was tight, even after discovering they'd taken a vacation they'd forgotten to tell me about. I helped Daniel find a job. I used my connections to recommend him for a client-facing position he wasn't qualified for. He nailed the interview. When no one's fact-checking, charisma can take you far. They never told anyone I helped. It was fine. I reminded myself I wasn't doing it for credit. I was doing it to stay connected, to feel like I still belonged to them. Even after I got my own apartment and a good job, I kept visiting, calling, and texting my mother on random Wednesdays to say, "Hope your day is going well." Sometimes she responded. Sometimes she left me on read for days. But when she did answer, it was like oxygen. She texted me once after I helped with some insurance paperwork. "You always come through." Thank you. I reread that message for weeks. I'm not proud of it, but if you've ever felt invisible to someone you used to be close to, you'll understand. That's why this year's brunch hurt so much, because I'd allowed myself to believe we'd turned a corner. She confirmed the invitation with a smiley face. She thanked me after I helped with taxes. She didn't ask for money. For a whole month, I felt things might be evened out. Maybe she was softening again. And for a brief moment that morning, standing on her porch with flowers, a letter, and the perfume she wore when I was little, I felt like a son again. Then she smiled at Noah's joke about me being part family, and stayed silent when Daniel cut me off mid-sentence to change the subject to stock options. And when I gave her the envelope, the one I'd spent the night writing, the one where I told her I loved her even when it hurt and felt one-sided, she barely looked at it. Then she threw it away. I keep seeing it. The bag in the garage, the crumpled red envelope, the unopened perfume box, the half-crushed flowers under other trash. I took it all back out. Not to give it again, not trying to make a point. I just couldn't bear leaving it there. Because those things weren't just gifts. They were me. And if she didn't want them, I was done giving. My mother texted that same evening. You left in a weird mood. Hope it wasn't something we did. It almost made me laugh, but it didn't, because nothing about this was funny. Not the years I spent making myself smaller to fit into the version of her life she preferred. Not the 1,000 little kindnesses I gave without being asked. Not the memory of her tucking me in at 7 and saying, "You're my whole world," only to grow up and discover that world had borders I wasn't allowed to cross anymore. They never kicked me out. They just made sure I always felt like I was visiting someone else's family. So I didn't call them back, because for the first time, I wasn't trying to be invited in. I was trying to remember what it felt like to belong to myself. I didn't sleep that night, not from anger or sadness. It was something worse. Clarity. That cold, stark clarity that comes when you've stopped hoping. Like standing in a house you thought you'd live in forever, only to discover all the walls are hollow. Around 2 a.m., I walked into my kitchen and arranged the 3 gifts on the counter: perfume, flowers, and a letter. They looked smaller and sadder now, like remnants of a version of myself I no longer recognized. I stared at the envelope for a long time, wrinkled from the garbage bag but still sealed. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it said. I opened my laptop. First, the utilities. I logged into the accounts I'd been quietly paying: gas, water, electricity, and set up final payments for the month. Then I removed my name from everything and closed the auto drafts. Next, the tuition account. I'd offered to help pay for Noah's next semester. The transfer hadn't gone through yet, scheduled for the 15th. I canceled it. The confirmation email made it official. Then I opened a new email and addressed it to my mother. Subject: Mother's Day. Body: just a heads up. I hid an envelope of cash inside the letter I gave you. It was meant for Noah's tuition. I hope it didn't get lost. I hit send. Then I closed my laptop, made tea I didn't drink, and sat in silence. Letting her deal with it felt better than yelling. The text started arriving around 8:12 a.m., as expected. Wait, what do you mean by cash? I didn't see any envelope inside. Are you serious? Oh my God, how much was in there? I'll look right now. Then came the calls, one after another. I watched as my screen lit up, then went dark. Voicemails piled up like little panic attacks. I didn't respond. I let her panic. Let her mentally retrace her steps. Let her wonder how much she had thrown away, literally and metaphorically. It wasn't true, of course. There was no cash. But she didn't know that. And now, every time she thought about that garbage bag, she felt it, the possibility that she'd thrown away something important. Not just a gift, not just money, but something that could have saved them. And now it was gone. Around noon, Daniel finally texted, "You're being childish. This is a serious issue. Please tell us if you're lying." I almost responded, "Check with the garbage truck." Instead, I silenced my phone and kept going. There was one last step. I checked my contacts and found the names of 3 people I'd personally introduced Daniel to. People he now worked with: client leads, vendors, and an old colleague who'd helped him land a side contract. I sent them all a version of the same message. "Hi, I just wanted to ask that from now on, please don't associate my name with Daniel Harper. Nothing dramatic, just a personal boundary. Hope that makes sense. No gossip. No details. Just enough to make them feel it. Enough to make them wonder what had happened behind the scenes. Enough to loosen a few threads." I knew how that world worked. Daniel's entire career rested on his reputation as a reliable guy with connections. And if I took a quiet step back, others would follow. By the end of the week, he'd already lost a major referral. A contract was put on hold. Another client preferred to work directly with someone else. I didn't have to lift a finger. Just one email and a few texts, and the machine began to unwind itself. That night, my phone vibrated again. "Did you find it? Please answer. I need to know. I think I saw the bag you're talking about, but everything's gone now. Please tell me if this is real." I looked at her name on the screen for a moment. I thought about responding with something harsh and final, but that would give her closure. So I did nothing, because this wasn't about revenge. This was about having them feel the weight I'd been carrying since I was 10 years old, when I stopped being her whole world and became an inconvenience she couldn't wait to be rid of. This was about watching them struggle in silence, finally understanding what I'd been saying for years. You can't keep erasing someone and expect them to stay loyal. I know I lied. I know there was never an envelope of cash. But the hurt, the dismissal, the abandonment, those were real. And for the first time in my life, they couldn't ignore it. My mother left me a voicemail that night. Her voice was shaky. She wasn't crying yet, but you could hear the desperation leaking through her calm. Please call me. I didn't know. I didn't see it. I would never if I had known what was inside. Please call me. Okay. I'm sorry if I, please call. She didn't say, I love you. She didn't say, I'm sorry, like she meant it. Just panic, as if they'd misplaced something valuable and couldn't remember where they put it. I still didn't respond. My aunt texted me the next morning. Apparently, my mother had called her crying. My aunt told her I was being cruel, withholding, and difficult. My aunt's message to me was simple. If I were you, I wouldn't answer either. That one actually made me smile, because for once, someone noticed. Really saw it. How much I had given, how little I had received, how quietly I had endured being nothing until it became unbearable. That weekend, I put the gifts away in my closet. I didn't want to keep them, but I also wasn't ready to throw them away. They were no longer reminders of her. They were reminders of me, the version of myself who had persevered. And I wasn't trying anymore. I was done. By Monday, she had stopped asking if I was okay and started demanding answers. Her text ranged from, I'm sorry you're upset, to you need to stop this now. Daniel emailed me directly in a professional tone, as if we were negotiating a contract rather than untangling a decade of hidden resentment. He said my decision to disconnect was hurting his career, and he hoped I would reconsider for the sake of the family's stability. Translation, your silence is costing me money. I didn't respond. Then Noah got involved. He sent a voice note starting with, look, I know things weren't always perfect, and ending with, but seriously, you're ruining Mom's life over what? Some trash? That one almost made me laugh. Some trash. That was the whole problem, wasn't it? They'd spent years treating me like I was a piece of clutter to be boxed up and stashed in the attic so I wouldn't ruin their aesthetic. Now that I was gone, they found themselves unable to function. I still didn't say anything. I didn't gloat. I didn't rant on social media. I didn't send a final, here's everything you did wrong message. I simply stopped playing the part, and it drove them crazy. By the end of the week, my mother showed up at my office. No warning, no call, just walked in like she was on a mission. The receptionist buzzed me like there was a fire. I came downstairs and saw her in the lobby, wearing a white blazer and heels that clicked like punctuation marks. She didn't smile. Can we talk? She asked, already walking toward the main doors. We stepped outside. She didn't ask how I was, didn't apologize. She went straight to it. You've humiliated this family, she said. You've embarrassed your brother. Daniel's job is hanging by a thread. Do you understand what that means? I understand exactly what it means, I replied quietly. She stared at me, eyes intense. You're doing this out of spite over one party? I tilted my head. Is that what you think? She folded her arms. We raised you. We paid for your clothes, your food, your school. I nodded slowly. And I gave you the down payment on your house. Covered your utility bills for 2 years. Offered to help with Noah's tuition. But sure, let's talk about the time you bought me sneakers in 5th grade. That broke something. Her jaw tightened. That was your choice. We never asked you to help. No, I replied. You didn't ask. You just expected it. Expected me to pick up the slack when Daniel forgot the mortgage was due. Expected me to understand when you skipped my birthday because Noah had a test. Expected me to stay quiet when you smiled while he called me half family like I was some accident. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. And you expected me to keep giving, I said, even after you threw away the only thing I had left to offer. That landed. She blinked. Something flickered in her face, maybe remorse or just discomfort. Then she tried one more play. You're punishing the wrong person, she explained. You're punishing your brother. He didn't throw anything away. I smiled, tight and tired. You want to talk about the letter? She paused. I saw it, Mom, I said. In the trash bag by the garage. I took it back. Her face transformed. The sharpness melted into something smaller and weaker. I didn't know, she stammered. I thought maybe you'd taken it with you. I wasn't sure. You weren't sure. I repeated. I didn't mean to. You never do. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just let her hear it. Really hear it. I'm not playing the part anymore just so you can feel better, I told her. I'm not cleaning up your messes. And if Daniel has to answer for how he got that job, that's not my problem anymore. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head, like the quiet, reliable version of me had been murdered in his sleep and replaced by a stranger. Then she said it. You're not just punishing Daniel. You're punishing this family. I nodded. Then maybe this family should have stopped treating me like a stranger with a checkbook. I walked back inside. I didn't look back. 2 days later, Noah shared a vague, dramatic post about people who abandon their family when times get tough. A few mutual friends liked it. One cousin messaged me privately, "Is that about you?" I responded, "Probably. And if it is, good." Daniel, I heard, started losing clients. People were questioning their partnerships. One of the vendors I'd introduced pulled their contract. He was asked to leave a month later. They called it reorganization. Everyone knew it wasn't. Noah's tuition didn't get paid. He had to defer for a semester. I never said anything about it, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because silence was the only language they never learned to speak. A few weeks after the office confrontation, my mom, Daniel, and Noah called me together. I didn't pick up. They left a voicemail. "We just want to talk," she said, sweet and cautious, like someone trying to reset a chessboard after flipping it. Noah mumbled, "Sorry, I guess." Daniel didn't speak. Then my mother added, "You made your point. So what now? You're disowning us." I played the message twice. Once to hear what they said, and once to hear what they didn't. Nobody said, "I'm sorry," like they meant it. Nobody said, "We didn't treat you well." They just wanted me back in position, back in the role. But I was done playing it. So I didn't respond. I blocked the number. 3 months later, I got promoted. I moved into a better apartment. I started having small dinner parties with people who actually wanted to hear what I had to say. Then one night, my mom sent a message from a new number. "Saw you moved. Hope you're doing well. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." She didn't mention what she had or hadn't done. She didn't ask how I was. She just wanted to see if the door was still open. It wasn't. I made tea, sat on my balcony, and looked out at the city lights. No noise. No guilt. No performance. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I felt freer than I had in years. Sometimes I wonder if I overreacted. Maybe I should have just let it go. Smiled through the hurt. Picked a better time to set boundaries. Chosen peace over quiet. But then I remember the garage. Standing there with my unopened gifts, still damp from the garbage bag. Writing that letter with shaking hands, trying to be vulnerable with someone who threw it away without a second thought. And I know I didn't burn any bridges. I just stopped carrying the weight of one that had been torn down years ago. I'm not proud of lying about the money, but I'm not ashamed of it either. Because for once, they had to deal with uncertainty, discomfort, and the possibility that what they threw away was more important than they thought.